Over 13 centuries ago, amidst a brutal conflict upon desolate ground, knights found themselves confronted by an unending horde of lesser creatures. A sense of desperation surfaced in one of the fighters, as the monstrous entities continued to materialize ceaselessly, one by one. A woman with dark hair observed that the calamity demon had commenced its egg-laying. A warrior with fiery red hair responded, with a voice tinged with sorrow, admitting they were too late once again. The red-haired warrior accepted the grim reality, remarking on the inevitability, stating, as was customary, they would need to offer up all their lives in order to seal the demon. At that precise instant, an unexpected voice cut into their discussion, declaring that such a sacrifice would be rendered obsolete. A colossal surge of azure energy erupted forth, obliterating every single monster with a single catastrophic blast. Then a mysterious figure with raven hair and an air of self-assurance manifested, querying the astonished warriors as to the reason behind their struggle. Against adversaries of such little consequence, the woman identified him without hesitation, calling out, "Liam!" His companions regarded him with utter confusion, questioning the immense power behind the attack they had just witnessed. One remarked that Liam's prowess had always been exceptional, but this feat he had just accomplished, the annihilation of all the demon's spawn with a solitary strike, represented something entirely beyond comparison. As one of the warriors started to probe him, Liam proudly declared he had acquired ability number 108, integrating it as his own, leaving his companions utterly astonished. Even after his previous display of formidable power, monsters persisted in emerging from the fissure in the earth. Liam expressed surprise at the continued emergence of monsters in such vast quantities, prompting him to unleash another energy wave. His comrades were taken aback by the immense power that Liam was expending. Liam proclaimed his ascension to the status of absolute king, empowered to achieve anything, having acquired 108 instructing abilities, the others to take refuge behind him. Asserting his intention to vanquish the calamity demon single-handedly, Liam advanced towards a colossal chasm, from which the formidable calamity demon was beginning to surface. Birthing a prodigious quantity of eggs, Liam declared that he would not permit it to generate such a vast number of man-devouring monstrosities, subsequently unleashing a potent, golden rope-like assault, pledging to extract the demon from its den, and consequently hauling it out of the abyss. The calamity demon's complete form was then unveiled. A grotesque, immense, and repulsive entity, the monster unleashed a beam of violet energy. As its offensive move, Liam initiated a counter-assault to intercept the incoming attack, directed at him. The two assaults clashed vehemently, culminating in a colossal detonation. Liam confronted the demon that reappears every 3 centuries, informing it that its demise was imminent. Since the inception of recorded history, humanity has persistently battled these abhorrent beings, and the monstrous offspring they produce, those dedicated to the eradication of the calamity demon, are known as the 100-man unit. The combatants within this unit undergo reincarnation every 300 years, synchronizing with the calamity demon's resurgence, and they invariably succeed in sealing it, at the ultimate price of their own existence. However, Liam proclaimed that such incomplete solutions as sealing were now relics of a bygone era, and that he alone would bring about the demon's annihilation. He resolved to stake everything on this singular assault, for he could only summon the immense might of all his 108 abilities on one occasion. Yet, at the most critical juncture, he suffered a treacherous assault from the rear. Liam collapsed to the ground, his limbs severed. His assailant approached, seizing him by the hair, forcing Liam to witness that his attacker was none other than his red-haired comrade, McGrady. Incredulously, Liam questioned the reason for this betrayal. McGrady divulged the treachery behind his actions, stating that he could not permit the calamity demon to be destroyed, and that he intended to seize those 108 powers for himself, to guarantee Liam's permanent absence through reincarnation. McGrady then declared he would bestow upon Liam the curse of immortality, followed by a brutal assault, commencing the act of siphoning all of Liam's abilities, mocking the absolute king and deeming him pathetic. Following this, McGrady, along with his deceitful allies, declared their intent to seal Liam within the abyss, and along with the demon they cast him into the pit. the very chasm from which the monstrous entity had appeared. Liam cast one last glance at his companions, whose faces were adorned with sly smiles as he fell. Having betrayed him, they invoked a magical seal to seal the opening. McGrady regarded the seal with a look of contentment. Subsequently, Liam's comrades started to vanish, having offered themselves as sacrifices to bind Liam and the monster eternally together. Within the profound depths of the abyss, Liam came to the realization that his companions had never truly sought peace, but instead orchestrated the sacrifice of everyone to trap him alongside the demon. He began to ponder the underlying reasons, formulating a theory that the demon's recurring resurgence was somehow advantageous to them. Liam relinquished himself to his destiny, understanding that he faced an extended duration alongside this demonic entity. The Calamity Demon then approached, raising its clawed appendage until it hovered directly before his visage. Liam addressed the Calamity Demon with utter disdain, questioning its actions with pride and ostentation, then contemptuously added that beings possessing such limited intellect had no grounds for such behavior, even asserting that its sadistic conduct had reached such a deplorable extent it constituted an offense even to pancakes. The Calamity Demon and its offspring proceeded to inflict torment upon him through every conceivable method. As the traitor McGrady had foretold, Liam was afflicted with the curse of immortality. Thus, whether his entrails were ripped asunder or his flesh was consumed, his body would instantaneously regenerate, compelling him to endure perpetual agony. After 12 arduous years of suffering, the scene continues. Liam swore an oath that, regardless of how many millennia transpired, his pursuit of vengeance would remain steadfast. He was resolved not to yield to the traitor, to destiny, or to this suffering, vowing that he would undoubtedly rise once more and compel the demons to submit to his will. However, in a moment of profound despair, overwhelmed by the ceaseless agony, Liam pleaded for death. At that precise instant, he perceived a mysterious voice calling out, "Lord Liam," and summoning his soul to inhabit a new form. His soul was then drawn from the abyss into a radiant light. Upon regaining awareness, he discovered himself in an unfamiliar body, repulsed by the squalor enveloping him, and so frail that he could not stand. He overheard others conversing, referring to his physical form as Kai. These individuals were ridiculing him, and one inquired whether he had met his demise, to which another responded that they wouldn't be considered murderers for someone like Kai, especially upon discovering him alive. They opted to punish him for causing them undue concern by submerging him in the pond once more. Upon awakening, Kai found himself encircled by unfamiliar individuals and could only utter a bewildered murmur. "My goodness, who are these men?" Suddenly, memories flooded his consciousness, and the vision of those bullies tormenting him reappeared. They seized him by his hair and forcefully plunged his head beneath the water. Then, a new individual named Joshua intervened, suggesting their actions were too lenient. He produced a small vial and declared he would demonstrate the proper method, explaining that anyone administered this substance would engage in the most peculiar dance imaginable. Despite Kai's desperate pleas to cease and his warnings about the drug's addictive nature, Joshua commanded the others to restrain Kai. Kai struggled and implored them to halt, but they proceeded to inject the drug into his arm. Instantly, Kai's body began to convulse uncontrollably. He attempted to suppress the ensuing nausea, but was unable to contain it, vomiting violently. The tormentors erupted in laughter at his bizarre contortions, while Joshua commanded him to dance, as if manipulated by strings. Following a brief duration of convulsive spasms, Kai's body succumbed and fell to the ground. The bullies erupted into mocking laughter, deriding Kai. However, Kai's ordeal was far from concluded. As Joshua loomed over him, he inquired who had permitted him to rest, then delivered a kick. As his memory recalls, he recalled Joshua standing over him as he lay incapacitated, sarcastically ordering him to rise and continue his dance until death. The scene shifts back to the present. As Kai remained on the ground, a revolting memory surfaced in his consciousness. He grasped the stark reality of his circumstances, in which he found himself. One of the larger bullies became incensed by Kai's low murmurs and contemptuously demanded to know what he had just uttered. Suddenly, A self-assured smile bloomed on Kai's face while he remained prone on the ground. This provoked the bully, who seized him by his attire, shouting directly at him and demanding an explanation for his smile. With a swift movement, Kai grasped the bully's wrist with unexpected force. He realized that, although he still didn't fully comprehend the situation, one aspect was undeniably clear. The individuals before him were nothing more than scum. His tone laced with defiance and eyes alight with a vengeful gleam. Kai declared that scum deserved their punishment. Inquiring if they disagreed, Kai's assertion infuriated the larger bully, who violently seized his collar, shouting at him, astonished that Kai would dare label them as scum. With such audacity, Kai disregarded the threat, instead directing all his attention towards sensing the magical energy residing within his new form, only to discover, to his disappointment, that it was merely a feeble ice-based ability. Meanwhile, the bully launched a powerful punch in his direction, vowing to demonstrate the genuine essence of pain. But before the fist could connect, Kai encased his arm in ice, effectively blocking the strike, forming a sharp ice blade around his forearm. The bully observed in stunned disbelief. Unable to comprehend the sight before him, he questioned the veracity of Kai's sudden metamorphosis. With a sly smile, Kai informed him that escape was no longer possible. Then he swung his ice-clad arm, delivering a devastating blow to the bully, sending him sprawling to the ground. As he cried out in agony, Kai stood triumphantly over his vanquished foe, calling him pathetic, while the bully groaned on the ground. From the excruciating pain, the remaining bullies observed the unfolding scene, in a state of complete shock and terror, wondering how Kai had acquired such sudden strength. At that very moment, Kai realized that the original occupant of this body had lacked the proper knowledge to utilize his abilities. Despite his victory, he perceived his body to be exceedingly frail, even after striking his opponent with maximum force. When the other bullies witnessed the event, fear gripped them, prompting their flight. Kai extended his hand, unleashing his ice-based power, which swiftly pursued the fleeing bullies, bringing them to an abrupt halt. He then calmly approached them and stated, and now, he contemplated their fate. He positioned himself before one of them and commanded him to remove his garments, handing them over, expressing his disgust that his current attire reeked of the swamp. He then turned to another bully and informed him that his jacket would suffice as a hand towel. After donning clean clothing and acquiring what he desired, he glanced at the terrified bullies, declared that was sufficient, then turned and departed, leaving them in a state of shocked humiliation. After leaving the bullies in a state of shock, Kai observed them trembling in fear and contemplated to himself that perhaps he should drown them all in the swamp. Their faces clearly showed terror, and one of them bowed, pleading, declaring they had learned their lesson, and apologizing for their behavior, begging for his absolution. However, Kai responded with coldness, questioning what they were referring to and reminding them of the countless lives they had taken. He then rebuked them, stating that the mere thought that an apology alone could offer them absolution was excessively self-serving. In a desperate effort to absolve themselves, the pleading bully fell to his knees, blaming Joshua for everything, claiming it was not their fault, and that Joshua had been the one issuing orders, and they were compelled to obey him. Kai recalled the name Joshua, mentally branding him a little bastard. The bully continued his confession, explaining that even the concept of the descendant of Liam game, which they had employed against Kai, was Joshua's invention. The name of the game piqued Kai's curiosity, prompting him to demand an explanation from the bully. With an angry expression and a commanding tone, he ordered Kai to answer the damned question he had posed, and the bully promptly complied. Trembling in fear, the bully began his explanation, stating that the descendant of Liam is a game passed down among the students of the Royal Academy of Magic, and that whoever is selected as the descendant of the traitor, Liam Hale, is subjected to punishment by all the Academy students in various ways upon hearing his name. Upon hearing the name Liam Hale, Kai froze. The bully was taken aback by his reaction and remarked that even children knew the tale of the defeat of the traitor, Liam Hale. the most notorious villain of his era, who was defeated by 99 heroes. Liam realized that those he deemed false victors had completely distorted history. With a sly grin, Liam resolved that this history needed correction. Subsequently, Liam compelled the bullies to escort him to his residence. The place resembled a ruin, causing the bullies to whisper amongst themselves, wondering why he insisted they accompany him to his dilapidated home. Liam turned to them and told them they could leave, but cautioned that this was not the conclusion. As Liam approached the dwelling's entrance, a man in formal attire emerged, inquiring if His Highness had already returned. Liam inferred from the man's address that the body he now inhabited belonged to a member of the royal family. However, he observed that, unlike the vivid recollections of bullying, he could not extract any further information from this body's mind, as if the brain were actively rejecting those memories. So, he turned to the man and inquired directly about Kai's origins. The man replied that Kai was the kingdom's 8th prince. Liam inquired why he wasn't residing in the castle, like the other members of the royal family, and the man indicated that special circumstances prevented it. Liam pondered to himself how those scum dared to treat a prince in such a humiliating manner. Liam decided to set the matter of these bullies aside for now, noting that Kai's body was clearly suffering from malnutrition. As he was about to enter, the head butler called out to him, requesting him to wait. The head butler caught up and inquired with concern about what had transpired, pointing out that he seemed like an entirely different person. Initially, Liam was suspicious, wondering how a mere servant dared to question the words and actions of a royal family member, and if this constituted an insult to Kai. But he soon perceived from the man's gaze that it stemmed solely from genuine concern. Liam decided to be straightforward, thinking to himself that he had no intention of impersonating the original Kai, and, with complete honesty, informed the astonished head butler that the Kai he knew was deceased, leaving the man in shock and disbelief. He then ordered him to regard himself from that moment forward as the servant of another. Later, as Liam slept in his opulent bedroom, he experienced a dream that transported him 100 years into the past. In the dream, he and his comrades were battling monsters, and a girl called out to McGrady, whom she regarded as her elder brother. McGrady, the red-haired warrior, doubted their chances of victory, believing it was still too soon for them. But his companion Mina urged him not to utter such a thing. Suddenly, a massive monster attacked McGrady, stabbing him fiercely and sending him flying into the air, while Mina screamed his name in terror. The monster then turned towards Mina, grabbing her, and the wounded McGrady screamed at the monster, telling it to stop and not to harm her. At that critical moment, a colossal beam of energy erupted, destroying the monster, and Liam appeared, announcing his timely arrival. Liam looked at the injured McGrady and remarked that he was barely clinging to life. McGrady could not believe his eyes, asking Liam if he had come to rescue them. Feeling ashamed for acting independently, and despite having declared he would not rely on Liam's assistance, Liam dismissed his pride, deeming his words childish, and began using magic to heal him, assuring him that everything was now fine. He then inquired about Mina's condition, reminding McGrady that he had been on his way to gather strengthening materials for them. McGrady felt grateful, admitting that, although Liam sometimes annoyed him, he had saved both his and Mina's lives. He grasped Liam's hand, vowing he would never forget this debt. Liam awoke from his dream, realizing what needed to be done. He sat up in his bed, determined to pursue those ungrateful bastards and compel them to return the power they had stolen from him. But he considered that, before anything else, he should express his gratitude to Kai, who had granted him this body as his vessel. The next morning, the head butler greeted him, informing him that his breakfast was ready. When he sat at the table, he found the food was the same simple menu that had been served the previous day. Liam tasted it with disgust, thinking to himself that it tasted terrible. Kai explained that the meals were prepared personally by the head butler, and that he was unaccustomed to cooking, adding that there was no one else in the palace to assist him. Liam looked at the plain food and thought to himself, sarcastically, that he couldn't believe this was his second life. The head butler began to apologize for the food's poor quality, but Liam interrupted him, telling him he should not apologize, as long as he was not to blame. Nevertheless, Liam stressed the need to improve the food situation as soon as possible. The next day, as Liam walked towards the academy, he overheard students around him discussing the study of magic's history and wondered to himself how he would locate Kai's enemies within this place. He had barely finished this thought when a group of students led by Joshua blocked his path. Joshua greeted him mockingly, wondering if he had finally decided to attend school. Liam immediately recognized this as Joshua, the individual who had been tormenting Kai. Joshua mentioned he had heard that Kai had given his companions a thorough beating yesterday, and added with a provocative smile that he had gone too far. Turned towards the other students, inciting them, saying that it was unacceptable for the descendant of Liam to dare to resist and that they could not let this matter go unchecked. The students enthusiastically agreed with him, shouting that his resistance was an impudence that deserved punishment and that they would teach him a lesson. To know his place, Joshua ordered them to attack him, as they always did. The students attacked not Liam with fists, but by pelting him with stones. They mocked him as he stood frozen in place, wondering if he was so terrified he would soil himself. At that moment, as Liam remained silent, blood began to stream from his head, and he realized to himself that this was the pain Kai had endured all along. Suddenly, the students throwing stones ceased their attack. Terrified by Liam's piercing gaze, Joshua yelled at them angrily, demanding to know who had ordered them to stop. But they writhed in fear, unable to answer. Seeing his followers had failed, Joshua decided to handle it himself, telling Liam he would beat him up, calling him garbage, and rushed towards him to strike him, yelling for him to know his limits. But when his fist met Liam's hand shattered effortlessly. Liam recalled his new body's fragility. Liam immediately healed his hand, stating there was no issue. The onlookers stared in shock, disbelieving he had healed himself so readily. Joshua raised his hand, calling Liam an annoying bastard, as he summoned a fireball in his hand, then launched a massive fire attack, shouting for him to die peacefully. Liam raised his hand, creating an ice shield that easily blocked the fire assault. When Joshua's fire attack met the ice shield, its flames reflected back towards Joshua, sending Joshua and his companions airborne. They all fell to the ground unconscious, while the remaining students watched the scene in utter shock. Liam stood commenting calmly that there was no resistance whatsoever. At that moment, a stout man, apparently one of the teachers, appeared and questioned Kai Asher about his actions, accusing him of causing trouble. With an arrogant expression, the teacher added that it seemed Kai required further guidance. Liam protested, stating that they had initiated the fight. But the teacher completely disregarded his words, ordering him not to talk back, and to follow him at once. As the teacher led Liam away, the other students began to whisper amongst themselves. One remarked that Kai deserved what was happening, while another sarcastically wondered how many weeks it would take for him to recover. This time, offering to bet on. Suddenly, Liam felt a sharp, sudden headache, and in a flash, he saw a memory of the real Kai being led away and tortured by the same teacher. Liam realized this pain was a memory from the original Kai, and that this teacher was one of those who had harmed him in the past. The teacher interrupted his thoughts, scolding him for his slowness, asserting that slackers needed discipline. Liam looked at him coldly, thinking to himself, discipline, is it? Well then, a frightening smile spread across his face, as he vowed he would be the one to set this rotten situation straight and beat it out of the teacher. The teacher brought Liam into his office, locking the door firmly, reminding him he had provided comprehensive guidance just 3 days prior, yet he was causing trouble again. Then he began to insult him, calling him a fake royal and a pervert who relished physical punishment. The teacher continued his mockery, saying the scent of a vulgar loser emanated from him, and this was to be expected from someone carrying the blood of a prostitute and a fallen kingdom. He concluded by saying no one was more suitable than Kai to be Liam's descendant, as he prepared to bind him with magic, purple energy, Restraints materialized around Liam's wrists and ankles, and then pinned him to the wall, but suddenly stopped, wondering in confusion why Liam wasn't crying and screaming. As usual, he mocked him, saying all he was good for was whining and begging for forgiveness. The teacher sensed something strange was occurring. He noticed Liam wasn't trembling at all, wondering if his mind was about to snap. Feeling bored, the teacher grabbed a spiked club, expressing his disappointment, as he thought there was no better plaything than Kai. To relieve his stress, a sadistic smile on his face, he raised the club to strike him, urging him to hurry up and let him hear his pathetic screams. Liam stood up but summoned a massive ice monster, catching the spiked club before it reached him. The teacher was stunned, wondering about the identity of the person before him. Liam shattered the magical restraints that bound him, mentioning he had noticed many whip marks on Kai's body while changing his clothes, and looked directly at the teacher, asserting those marks were his doing. The teacher tried to call for help, shouting Kai's name and telling him to stop. Liam ordered the monster to pin the teacher to the ground. The teacher started to speak, but Liam interrupted him, warning him he would break his arm if he spoke without permission. Instantly, the teacher's arm was broken, and he let out a piercing scream of pain. Liam coldly reminded him that he had ordered him not to speak, and vowed his left hand would be next. Terrifying the teacher into silence, Liam stated it seemed the teacher had hurt Kai significantly. The teacher attempted to defend himself, as it appeared, in a memory of Kai that flashed in Liam's mind, claiming that what he had done was part of his education. The teacher covered his mouth, remembering he had spoken. Despite Liam's warning, Liam smiled sarcastically and said, "I see." He added that if there was indeed something to be learned from whipping, then the teacher should show him what that lesson entailed. Then, he ordered the teacher to whip himself with his spiked belt. The teacher strongly refused, stating he could not do that under any circumstances. Liam then asked in a threatening tone if he would prefer to be pierced by an ice arrow instead of being whipped. While summoning a magic circle, he added with a terrifying smile that he couldn't guarantee survival if he chose the arrow immediately. The teacher changed his mind and agreed to the whipping. Liam ordered him to hurry up and begin, and not to forget to remove his clothes first. Liam sat quietly on a chair while the teacher knelt before him, naked except for his underwear. Crying and holding the spiked belt, the teacher began whipping himself, screaming in pain with each strike. After a while, bleeding and exhausted, he stopped, asking Liam if that was sufficient. Liam replied with complete calm, "Yes, just like that, 100 more times." The teacher looked at him in absolute terror. After completing the 100 lashes, the teacher collapsed on the floor, his back covered in bloody wounds, muttering that he was finished. But Liam asked why he felt relieved, and told him he did not intend to let him go yet. The teacher's eyes widened in fear as he stared at Liam, who looked at him with a cold, merciless gaze. The teacher was in a state of absolute terror and pain, while the students outside wondered in confusion what was happening. Suddenly, Liam used his magic to create a towering ice pillar in the school courtyard, placing the naked teacher at its apex, where he began to scream for help. Liam ordered him to confess, in front of the entire school, what he had done to Kai. The teacher begged to be brought down first, but Liam ignored him and snapped his fingers. The ice at the top of the pillar began to melt, causing the teacher to start sliding down. Liam looked up at him from below, urging him to hurry up and confess, before he lost his balance and fell under the weight of fear. The teacher began his loud confession, admitting he had used physical punishment against Kai. Liam demanded he be more specific. So the teacher confessed that he had stripped Kai of his clothes and repeatedly whipped him with a belt. He acknowledged he had called this torture, educational guidance, but in reality, it was just a way to relieve his personal stress. The students listened in astonishment, as the teacher screamed that he was the one at fault, that Kai had done nothing wrong, and yet he had unjustly punished him countless times. Then he screamed, confessing he was a perverted monster who enjoyed whipping, ending his confession with tears and begging for forgiveness. The students whispered among themselves, that the teacher named Pierce was finished and could not remain at the academy after this resounding scandal. Then Liam turned towards the whispering students, asking them if they found this amusing, and they froze in place with a look full of contempt. He asked if they were Liam's descendants, telling them they disgusted him. Liam pointed at them, then pointed to the humiliated teacher atop the ice pillar, declaring that this was the fate of everyone who had harmed Kai Asher, and issued a resounding warning that anyone carrying the same sins as this man would be punished and none would escape. With eyes shining blue, he ordered them to tremble and await their fate. All the students, including Joshua, watched in terror and complete silence. From a distance, Joshua watched the scene, his face covered in bruises, cursing Kai in secret. A girl with long brown hair approached and called him pathetic. Elsewhere, inside a lavish office, an old man, apparently the headmaster of the academy, commented that Kai had crossed all lines this time. Kai stood before him in silence, as the headmaster added that a student insulting a teacher was the first incident of its kind since the academy's founding. In the headmaster's office, a bald man shouted at Liam, condemning his insolent attitude. Liam looked at him with a cold gaze that terrified the headmaster and the woman sitting next to him, Mrs. Keller, and the bald man. Liam justified his actions by saying he had exposed Teacher Pierce because he was subjecting Kai Asher to unjust physical punishment to satisfy his twisted desires. The headmaster scoffed at his words, asking if that was all he had to say. He described Liam's claim as ridiculous, asserting that Mr. Pierce was a virtuous teacher and would never commit such an act. Liam replied, wondering how they could say that, even though the teacher had confessed his actions. In front of all the students, the headmaster answered that Liam had tricked him into confessing. The bald man turned to Mrs. Keller, holding her responsible, and she offered her apology. Then she addressed Liam, claiming he had a habit of lying, and that just a few months ago he had come to her crying, complaining about his classmates bullying him. The headmaster interrupted her, declaring that their academy knew nothing of physical punishment or bullying. Keller agreed, saying that was obvious. She added with a malicious smile that Kai was a gloomy person, which was why people hated him. And then he blamed others, calling it bullying. Liam approached Mrs. Keller and stared directly into her eyes, saying that, in other words, she was the one who had rejected Kai's call for help. Mrs. Keller became angry, asking if he was threatening a teacher again, and demanded the headmaster expel him immediately. The headmaster, of course, agreed. Keller turned to Liam, reminding him that his dream was to become a national healing mage, and unfortunately told him that this dream ended today. Liam sat thinking about Kai Asher's dream, while the headmaster stood up to officially announce the expulsion decision. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, and the assistant headmaster entered, apologizing for the interruption, saying he had an urgent message. After the headmaster heard the message, his expression completely changed, and he asked the assistant in shock what he had just said. Then he turned to Liam and told him coldly that he would just give him a warning. This time Mrs. Keller was shocked and angrily wondered if he wasn't going to expel him. She screamed that this was ridiculous, but this student had almost killed an innocent teacher. The headmaster exploded in anger, ordering her to be silent, declaring that this was an order from Lord Keith. The mention of the name Keith surprised those present. After the meeting ended, the headmaster shouted at everyone, ordering them to leave, pushing Liam out of the office himself. Liam found himself thrown into the hallway and began to wonder about the headmaster's sudden change of mind. Then he remembered Mrs. Keller and her harsh words about ending his dream. He wondered if she was also one of Kai's revenge targets, and decided he would need to search Kai's memories to find out more. As he was walking, he sensed someone's presence, and when he turned around, he was surprised to see a girl standing at the end of the hallway. At that moment, a painful memory flashed in his mind, where he heard a voice mocking him, saying, "This is what you get, Mr. Absolute King." It was the memory of his betrayal, where McGrady was ordering a woman named Violet to inflict more harm on him, and she had agreed. Violet used her magic to torture him, and McGrady ordered him to disappear from his sight, wishing him eternal suffering as he was thrown into the abyss. And he remembered Violet's smile as she watched him fall. Liam returned to the present, where the girl approached him and told him she had something to say to him. Liam thought about the 100-man unit, warriors who had fought with him and then betrayed him. He remembered that these warriors inherit their powers and memories and are reincarnated every 300 years. He immediately realized that the woman standing before him was undoubtedly the new incarnation of Violet. The girl approached Liam, and just as she was about to speak, Liam lunged at her in the blink of an eye and pinned her to the wall, causing her to scream in surprise. He told her he didn't expect her to appear before him so easily, and that this saved him the trouble of searching for her. He called her by her name, but she feigned ignorance, asking who Violet was. Liam grabbed her by the neck, saying she was clinging desperately to life, and asked if she really thought she could get away with what she had done. She mumbled that she didn't understand what he was saying. She cast a wind spell towards Liam and then pushed him away from her, using a powerful gust of wind. Liam called her cunning because she had attacked him with the power of the wind god that she had stolen from him. After telling a ridiculous lie, Violet seemed exhausted after using that power. Liam told her that this power was a wasted treasure in her hands because she couldn't control it, and that she wasn't even using 10% of its true power. Liam told Violet that she was unfit to be the wielder of the power, and announced that he would reclaim his stolen power from her. But before he could do anything, he felt a sharp pain pierce his body, and he coughed up blood. He realized that the strain of using magic had pushed this fragile body beyond its limits, and he felt a heaviness take over him, as if he were made of lead. Then he collapsed unconscious. When he regained consciousness, he found himself lying in a bed, while the girl he knew as Violet and his head butler stood beside him. The girl expressed her happiness that he had woken up, but Liam looked at her in confusion, wondering why she was there. She tried to stop him from getting up, saying that he should rest, but he sharply slapped her hand away, wondering what was going on. The head butler intervened, asking Master Kai not to treat the woman who had saved him in this way. Liam repeated the word "saved me" in confusion, and the head butler explained that it was Lady Bridget, who had treated him when he collapsed, and had even carried him safely to the palace. Liam thought to himself that his wounds had indeed been healed, and that in that state of weakness, she could have done whatever she wanted to him. Nevertheless, his suspicion did not dissipate, so he confronted her again, calling her Violet and asking her what she was planning. The girl insisted that she was his classmate, Bridget Fortescue, and wondered why he kept calling her Violet, and asked if he had really forgotten her. Liam accused her of faking memory loss, and asked her how long she would continue this charade. He reminded her that she had used the power of the wind god that she had stolen from him in her past life, and that this was conclusive proof that she was the reincarnation of Violet, and that it was impossible to pretend to be someone else. After revealing that power, Bridget seemed completely bewildered, muttering words like, "your power," and "a past life," which made Liam believe she had great audacity to continue acting. He approached her fiercely and announced his true identity, saying that 12 years ago, traitors had sealed him in the abyss, and that he was Liam Hale. Bridget repeated the name in shock, wondering if he was the legendary figure himself. Liam noticed that her reaction seemed genuine, as if she really didn't know him, which he found strange. He grabbed her chin, wondering if she really didn't remember, and was about to use his magic on her, when the head butler suddenly intervened, using a purple energy to stop Liam. He asked him to stop treating the lady so harshly. Liam realized that his head butler was no ordinary person. Liam asked calling him Morrison, whose side he was on. Morrison replied that he had always been, and would always be, on his side, and that was why he had intervened. Then he reminded him of what he himself had said, that Kai is no longer needed, and asked him if he meant that this body no longer belonged to Kai, but was now inhabited by the spirit of Liam Hale. Morrison asked Liam to tell him everything, wondering what was happening here. After a moment of silence, Morrison repeated his question to be sure, inquiring if the spirit currently inhabiting this body was the spirit of Liam Hale and not the spirit of Kai. Liam agreed and said he would tell them about the suffering that had befallen him and Kai. After he told his story, Bridget commented that what had happened was horrific, while Morrison noted that Liam did not doubt the reality of reincarnation, which was expected, as it had been known for 13 years, that the warriors of the 100-man unit, who fight the Calamity Demon, inherit their memories and are reborn. Bridget explained that the power of the wind god she possessed had been taken from her personality in her past life. She bowed deeply in apology and acknowledged that she had no memory of it. But she apologized on behalf of her past self. Then she offered to return the power of the wind god. Immediately, Liam smiled and told her that, of course, she would return the power, but that would not be the end of the matter. He reminded her that he had been trapped with the Calamity Demon and tortured in every possible way for 13 years, and vowed that the same suffering would befall the traitors as well. Liam thought to himself that they had made a mistake by bringing him back, and that they were faking memory loss to avoid his revenge, but he decided not to show any mercy. However, he saw that if they had truly lost their memories, his revenge would not be satisfying unless he first restored their memories and then took his revenge on them. He told Bridget that he would read her memories. Using mind-reading magic, he extended his hand, but nothing happened. Morrison intervened, explaining that the only magic Kai could use was weak ice magic. Liam felt frustrated that he couldn't use such a simple spell, and realized that so far he hadn't been able to absorb the power of the wind god. From Bridget, Liam announced that he would go to train in magic, and that his revenge would come after that. Morrison and Bridget tried to stop him, insisting that he still needed to rest. Morrison offered to help, saying that he had already learned mind-reading magic. Liam dismissed the idea sarcastically, ruling out the possibility that the strongest king would rely on someone else. Then he got up to leave, and told Morrison that he wouldn't be back until he had mastered this ability, and that there was no need to prepare meals for him. For a while, Liam began his training, realizing that Kai's latent magical power was not small, and that with proper training, this body could surpass his original body. But he knew that in order to unleash those abilities, his fragile body must first get used to powerful magic. He tried to channel a large amount of magic, but his body couldn't handle the pressure, and he coughed up blood despite the pain. He continued to push himself, believing that this was still not enough, and continued his training. Throughout the night, Morrison found Liam continuing his arduous training and begged him to stop, warning him that he would die if he exhausted himself further. But Liam was in such a state of intense focus that Morrison's voice didn't reach him. Morrison realized that Liam was standing on sheer willpower and was impressed by his amazing concentration. Morrison placed a plate of food near him, explaining that this dish was made from ingredients that help stabilize magic, and begged him to eat it. Liam continued his intensive training, summoning complex magic circles until he reached a moment of realization. After less than 2 days, and although it was just low-rank magic, he managed to master mind reading and ability absorption. He thought to himself that, as he had expected, this body and its latent potential were impressive. Liam turned to see the food basket that Morrison had left for him and remembered his words, that the dish was prepared with ingredients that stabilized magical power. Liam suddenly remembered unnecessary things from Kai's memories. He saw Kai returning to the palace in a pitiful state and apologizing to himself for being a miserable master. Kai offered Morrison to write him a letter of recommendation if he ever felt like leaving the palace. But Morrison assured him that he would never leave, and that no matter what happened, he would always be by his side. After recalling this memory of Kai, Liam sat down and began to eat the food that had been left for him for so long that it had almost spoiled. After his stomach was full, he decided to take a short break. When he returned to the palace, he noticed that the door was wide open, which was strange. He touched a spot on the door and realized, as he had expected, that it was blood. Liam entered the palace, to find the head butler lying on the floor, his face and eyes covered in blood. Liam screamed, calling out to the head butler, and ordered him to get healed immediately. He tried to help him, but realized with regret that he couldn't use healing magic in his current state. He grabbed him and told him to wait, and that he would find a healer. After bringing the healer, the bleeding was stopped and the fractures were treated. The healer explained that despite this, it would take about a month for the pain, swelling, and bruises to disappear completely. Liam asked him about the condition of his right eye, and the healer replied sadly that the vision in that eye would most likely never return. Liam felt responsible for what had happened, because he had failed to notice the enemy's infiltration. Morrison continued to apologize for causing his master trouble, but Liam interrupted him, saying that was enough, and more importantly to tell him who had attacked him. After learning the identity of the attacker, Liam left the palace with a cold, angry expression on his face. Elsewhere, Liam began to use magic circles to attack. Joshua was enjoying a luxurious meal in his father's palace. As he was sipping from his glass, the place shook with a sudden violence, causing him to jump from his seat. Wondering what was happening, a servant rushed to him screaming that something terrible had happened to the palace gate. Joshua looked outside and saw that the massive gate had been completely destroyed and wondered in shock what had happened. The servant suggested that they had been attacked, and it occurred to Joshua that his father's political enemies might have sent assassins to get rid of them. As he knew his father had made many enemies, Joshua realized that destroying a custom-designed gate like this would require immense power. Joshua ordered his guards to secure the gate and this room immediately, but a voice interrupted him, saying there was no need for guards. Liam appeared at the entrance of the room and told Joshua that he was the person he had come for. Joshua shouted in anger and ordered his men to kill him. The personal guards rushed towards Liam, but he unleashed a wave of ice magic that wiped them all out. In an instant, the guards fell to the ground defeated, and Liam asked Joshua sarcastically if he really thought that mere guards could stop him. Joshua cursed in frustration, then used fire magic to attack Liam with fireballs. Liam easily blocked the attack with an ice shield, and the force of the explosion knocked the attacking Joshua to the ground. The defeated Joshua screamed, wondering who this person was, and urged the servants to do something. Liam told him that, unfortunately, it didn't seem like anyone here intended to help him. Joshua was terrified. Liam approached him and asked if he knew why he was here. Joshua replied fearfully that he didn't know. Liam stared at him with a sharp gaze and asked, "Do you dare to lie to me?" Joshua trembled with fear. Liam warned Joshua to think carefully before he spoke, and asked if he was the son of the man who controlled this area. Liam mentioned that Joshua had been doing as he pleased, hiding behind his father's power, and that was why the head butler knew his name. But Liam explained that the real problem was the person who had conspired with Joshua. Liam placed a sharp ice shard on Joshua's eye, saying that his head butler was a skilled magic user, and that it was impossible for Joshua to have harmed him alone. Liam asked him who was with him that day, besides his usual followers. Joshua stammered, denying that anyone else was there. Liam became angry and warned him not to make him repeat his question, and to think carefully before he uttered a word. Then he asked him again sharply, "Who was there?" Joshua collapsed in fear and begged Liam to spare his life, promising that he would talk. Joshua confessed that the person with him was His Majesty King Keith. Liam immediately remembered how the headmaster of the academy had mentioned that the cancellation of his expulsion order was by order of Lord Keith. As Liam was connecting the dots, Joshua begged him for forgiveness. Liam wondered to himself if Keith was Kai's real enemy. Joshua shouted that he couldn't say any more, because His Majesty would kill him if he did. Liam calmly replied that it was okay, and that he would ask Keith for the details directly. Joshua was surprised when he saw Liam preparing his magic again, and asked him why, after he had told him everything. Liam replied, wondering if he thought that just confessing was enough to be forgiven, especially since his head butler's sight would never return. Joshua screamed in terror as Liam told him that he had not come here to gather information, but for revenge. He explained to him that he didn't know if he enjoyed torturing Kai, but he had made a fatal mistake. When he touched his head butler, Joshua begged for mercy, but Liam approached him and asked if he knew the phrase, "An eye for an eye." Then he used his magic to gouge out Joshua's eye, who let out a horrific scream of pain. Later, at the palace, Liam went to visit Morrison, whose eyes were covered with bandages. Morrison asked him what he was holding. Liam showed him a glass jar containing an eyeball, explaining that it was the trophy of his revenge. Morrison was horrified and asked him to bury it in the garden. But Liam jokingly asked if he would prefer to put it on a display shelf, to which Morrison insisted that was enough. Morrison commented that he had never imagined that Liam would return with something like this. Liam replied that this trophy alone was not enough, and that this only meant that there were still people who deserved revenge. Then Liam asked Mauritian about the other attacker, and Mauritian confirmed that he had been attacked. From behind, Liam told him that he had forced Joshua to confess the name of his accomplice, which was Prince Keith. Liam asked Mauritian if the name Prince Keith meant anything to him. Mauritian was silent for a moment, which Liam interpreted as him already knowing the name. Mauritian told Liam that he did not wish to take revenge on that person. Liam replied that he was not interested in his wishes, to which Mauritian answered that there was no reason for Liam to seek revenge on his behalf in the first place, reminding him that he was no longer Master Kai. Liam agreed that he had nothing to do with it, but pointed out that Kai had considered Morrison his ally. Liam explained that he was indebted to Kai for giving him a body, and for that reason, he intended to carry out anything Kai had wanted to do. He added that this person, named Keith, was most likely the culprit who had killed Kai. In Liam's memory, Joshua was screaming in pain after losing his eye. Liam walked away from the scene at Joshua's palace and ordered the servants to move a woman who had fallen and to provide her with care. Then he turned to the terrified Joshua, who was begging for mercy. Liam told him that with this, he had avenged his head butler and the debt was repaid. But he added that the revenge for Kai was not yet over. Liam grabbed Joshua and accused him of drugging Kai and stealing his life. Joshua defended himself, saying he only did it because he had received orders. Liam asked if the orders were from Prince Keith, and Joshua confirmed it, adding that Keith had threatened to kill him if he revealed the matter. Joshua was left on the floor, writhing and begging for forgiveness. Back in the present, Liam told Morrison that for Kai's sake, they had to question Keith. Morrison stopped him, begging him to wait. He asked him in shock if Master Kai had been drugged and killed, and if that meant that Master Kai was really dead. Morrison tried to hope, wondering if what was happening was just a temporary switch between Master Liam's personality and Kai's. He asked, "Isn't that what's happening?" Liam explained the horrifying truth. Kai was forced to take drugs by those bastards, and after terrible suffering, he died, which was why Liam's soul was able to enter his body. He added that one body could only contain two souls, and therefore Kai's soul and personality were no longer present in this body. Morrison collapsed in a state of shock and denial, then began to cry. Remembering that Master Kai was kind and gentle, he remembered how Kai was a person with a kind heart, who never hated others no matter what happened, and lamented the fact that he had been tortured and killed in this way, with anger and grief. Morrison declared that this could not be forgiven, and asked Master Liam if he would avenge Master Kai. With a clenched fist and a determined look, Liam replied that he had always intended to do so.